Okay, good evening, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:02. Stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll get a roll call and establish the quorum. Here.
Bayless. Brentwood. Here. Clayton.
Here.
Ferguson Florissant.
Here.
Hancock Place. Here. Hazelwood.
Here.
Jennings. Here. Kirkwood. Kirkwood. Okay. Ladue.
Here.
Lindbergh.
Here.
Maplewood. Melville, I am here. Normandy.
Here.
Parkway.
Here.
Pattonville.
Here.
Rittner.
Here.
Riverview Gardens. Rockwood.
Here.
And then University City.
Here.
Valley Park. Webster Grove. There, perfect. Is that Tara?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, we have a quorum.
All right, so about
Good to see you.
So next up on our agenda, first let's say welcome to all of our new governing council members. But next up is approval of tonight's agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then can we get an approval of the minutes from our last meeting on March the 3rd?
Madam Chair, I so move.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. So we have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, next up, we have our public speakers. We have Mr. Tim Eby with the Special Education Foundation. Should have known that, sorry.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Tim Eby. I'm the Executive Director of the Special Education Foundation. And first of all, there's a lot of places you could be tonight on this beautiful evening, and you've chosen to be here. And so I just want to express my thanks on behalf of the foundation for your commitment to public education and your commitment to the special school district. It's really appreciated. I'm here to address a couple of things. One, the budget that you will be looking at, as well as your calendar of upcoming events. On the budget front, I just wanted to share with you that the Special Education Foundation during this past school year provided more than $260,000 in support for students, their families, and educators in the SSD community. And we're thrilled to be able to provide that support in various ways to support the students. On the calendar side of things, I wanted to share with you an upcoming event that's coming up in about 10 days on Thursday, June 12th. It's our second annual 2025 Starfish Awards. I'm not sure if many of you are aware of the starfish story about the parable of making a difference in the life of a starfish, but in our case, it's making a difference in the life of a student in the special school district. And we are having our second annual Starfish Awards event this year at the Reverie, which is at the factory in Chesterfield. And I just wanted to share with you, because several of these folks are within your school districts, are winners for this year. We have 8 winners, 1 from the special school district, and then 7 from the sub-districts within St. Louis County. And I'll quickly run through the names of the winners. We have everyone from bus drivers to paraprofessionals to teachers and assistant teachers. Our first winner is from the Hazelwood School District, a bus driver. Titus Mr. T. Cothran is our winner. Jamie Heidman is our winner from Rockville School District. She's a special speech language pathologist teacher with the Westridge Elementary School. Wendy Hopkins is a paraprofessional at Parkway South High School, representing the Parkway School District. Shana Joshua is a paraprofessional. She's at the Michelle Obama Early Childhood Center in Riverview Gardens School District. I'm sorry, did I say the name right?
Yes, you do.
Yes.
Yes, you
Celebrate
do.
Riverview.
Good, okay. Bridget Linders is a teacher at Iveland Elementary in the Rittner School District. Amanda Moran is a teacher's assistant at Dressel Elementary in the Lindbergh District. Gail Ross is a teacher's assistant at Ackerman School within the Special School District. And last but not least, Julie Sanders is a teacher at Hancock Place Elementary School representing Hancock Place School District. We also have 3 community award winners. Our Community Starfish Award winner is a longtime volunteer with the Special Education Foundation, Mary Lee Berleman. Mary Lee is a retired administrator with SSD. Our Spirit of SEF Award, which is another Community Starfish Award, is going this year to Debbie Smith, our retiring coordinator for the Fred Sy Leadership. And Debbie is also a retired SSD administrator. And our Starfish Leadership Award is going to Dr. Jermaine Stewart, who is a principal at McCurdy Elementary School in Eastwood. So that date is June 12th. We'd love to have you there. And if you want to take advantage of the educator discount, educators get $50 tickets where they're regularly priced at $125, and you can do those, purchase those tickets at starfishawards.org. Thanks so much and appreciate all you do.
Thank you. We don't have any other public speakers listed, so next up is the superintendent report.
Great, thank you. Again, thank you to my new governing council members who are here tonight and my existing governing council members tonight. So tonight for the superintendent's report, we actually will be hearing from Dr. Bolton, who will be leading us regarding our strategic plan and our CSIP, and then Cindy Rauman, our CFO, will be giving us a budget update. But before that, tonight, I just want to give a very, very brief response to a request as related to just the current governing council member to really outline the roles and responsibilities, really as it relates to governance for SSD. I think when we look at Senate Bill 0687 states really a couple of pieces. And you guys have a document there which really outlines the difference in the roles and responsibilities between the Board of Education and the Governing Council. But Senate Bill 0687 really gives 6 tasks, which is the Governing Council is elected with, asked to elect the SSD Board of Education, who is here tonight, review and approve the annual budget, which you will do that tonight. Endorse a long-range plan that guides the educational initiatives. That's the CSIP, the strategic plan. You will hear that tonight. Additionally, the Public Review Committee conducts a comprehensive evaluation every 4 years to ensure that the district is operating effectively. I think tonight you will select 3 members to serve on the PRC. And then in addition to hold 4 meetings a year and to consult with PAC. So those are the 6 items in the Senate Bill 0687. In September, we'll have a longer presentation, which really gives a longer orientation into the role, and then also a in-depth look into special school district. Any questions or comments here regarding that brief update?
Yes, I do. Garrett Weiss, Hancock Place. Part of the reason why I requested this information be brought forward is because many of you know, some of you don't because you're new. I've been serving on this council since 2010, 2011. And there was a period of time as of late, not that long ago, that I brought some very serious issues to this council that were completely overlooked and has created the crisis that SSD is in currently. So our roles and responsibilities are, this is a very simple overview, that is for sure. I'm hoping that the in-depth in September will be much more efficient because it's actually multiple pages of documents, not the least of which is actually to compel the attendance of the superintendent to be placed under oath and ask questions. I actually made this request to the chair of this council and was summarily dismissed. And then there was a vote taken, and I'm the only one in this council that voted no for that budget to be passed. that has created the crisis that we're currently in and facing. I pointed this out to the council multiple times. In fact, I predicted exactly what this line on page 38 shows. The orange line, not the blue one, the orange one. I predicted this well ahead of time and presented it to this council, and you all ignored it. People who are new, that's not you, but pay attention because you have a very important role here to make sure that the ship doesn't capsize. Dr. Macklin's doing a great job. I've been actually monitoring his progress, and he's been doing his bang up job, and we'll hear about that later in his presentation. But we're here today where we're at because of a lack of due diligence from this council. And I was actually removed from this council because I blew the whistle.
Jeremy, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to say that we believe in transparent communication, and just to ensure at the end of the day that we are working in sync. All of our goals who are sitting around this table is ensure that students are successful, and that's the ultimate goal of where we need to be. And so I'm thankful for the opportunity. Every single day, there are individuals, many individuals in this organization give their all to ensure that students have what they need. And thank you for the work that you guys are doing here this evening. And so I don't mean to interrupt Garrett.
Oh, you're fine.
If there are any other questions.
Hearing none,
Thank you.
thank you. Dr. Bolton? Evening.
Not quite as tall as he is. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Molly Bolton, and I am the Chief of Teaching, Learning, and Accountability. And under my office falls the purview of monitoring the strategic plan as well as the comprehensive school improvement plan, which we call the CSIP. So tonight I will be giving you actually our third quarter updates. We are in the process. Fourth quarter just ended, so we are in the process of compiling our fourth quarter report as well as our plans for next year. So tonight I'm going to present you with the third quarter results. And just a quick reminder, we are just finishing the third year of our 5-year plan. So this graphic here does give you a breakdown of the difference between the strategic plan and the comprehensive school improvement plan. Oftentimes the districts will have one or the other. In our case, we do have both. In a nutshell, the strategic plan really looks at the operations of the district as a whole. So that includes the operations side as well as the instructional side. The comprehensive school improvement plan or CSIP plan focuses more on the instructional side with really focusing on student results. But you can see the specifics in this graphic. So I'm going to start with the strategic plan process this evening and walk through all 3 of our goals and then the strategies that support those goals and the progress that we've made on those. So our CSIP, our strategy goal number 1 really talks about our database systems and making sure that our systems are supporting the district as a whole, instructional as well as operational side. So we do have 2 strategies that support this. They are run by the same team or addressed through the same team. Some things that we have accomplished this year, one of the big things we've been looking at is how can we build or leverage a technology system in order to share data from each partner district, as well as having our data in that system, so that teachers and administrators, both on the partner district side, as well as we have a one-stop shop to go to. Oftentimes, this is kind of addressed through our partnership agreements. However, we don't have a system to house it all because everybody has a different system and they don't always talk to each other. So this committee has really been working on finding or developing a system. They are working in collaboration with an organization called MoreNet, which you may have heard of. that does a lot with technology across the state and works very closely with DESE. And through a grant that was received by Mornet, we have been able to contract with a couple of technology companies to really help us start developing a dashboard and a system in order to house this data. We were doing really well our first year. We had a great system in place. We felt like we were actually moving. And then the company that housed that system decided to discontinue that system. So we then had to kind of go back to square one and find another company. So we think we have found the companies that can help us make this dream into a reality. So they've really been working, this team has really been working with Mornet and Educational Analytics, which is one of the companies we're working with, to really look at how we can create these dashboards. Also, this team, we have a new student information system this year called Focus. And this team has also worked with the analytics from that team to see how we can better prepare our teachers that are mostly in our SSD schools and our technical schools to utilize that system. Kind of what they're working on as next steps is really kind of finalizing the scope of work with educational analytics. And then also they are working on a dashboard for our key performance indicators as a district, which we hope to bring to you guys potentially in the fall. Our second goal on our strategic plan is really looking at our resources and how we are utilizing those to optimize student performance. We do have strategies under this goal. The first really being looking at the resources that we have and helping in each division, both operational as well as instructional, and then using those resources then to guide the second strategy, which is developing those processes to determine how do we effectively and equitably distribute those resources. So as you can see, the first strategy has been completed. The resources have been identified. And now that data has moved into the second strategy, where we're really now looking at how to distribute those resources. One of the things that we have worked on in collaboration with our union, SCNEA, is a caseload workload formula for our teachers. So really looking at how do we measure, instead of just student count or minute count, how do we really take into account those things that really impact our teachers' workloads? One of the things we're looking at, we had a summit. This has been 2 years in the making. We had a summit that came together with collaboration from SSD employees as well as our union, and really identified a lot of different factors that we need to take into consideration. One of the newer factors that we have added to this is called our Distressed Community Index, or DCI. And this is an indicator that shows communities that may be in distress, that impacts workload, where you have students with high mobility rates, low social economic, less resources. So that is one of the pieces we are looking at incorporating into the formula. Also, as you were presented last time, we have reallocated some staff, and this strategy has been working towards that reallocation process as well. So upcoming next steps is they're going to continue to work on that caseload workload formula, and then really making sure we're integrating a lot of that work into our broader system. Moving on to goal 3, we're really looking at how are we communicating in two-way communication methods with all of our different stakeholder groups. We do have 3 strategies under here. Our first, focusing on our business partners. We do have a lot of business partners that work with our vocational skills program, that work with our tech schools, as well as those who just work with the district in general. So really, one of the things that our equity department did is take each one of our strategies and do what we call an equity audit, where they looked at how is this strategy incorporating the equity principles from our equity framework into the strategy work that they're doing. So As you can see here, 3.1 just completed that audit, and they are working on now integrating the recommendations from that audit into their strategy. They were also defining levels of partnership and really focused in on those partners who do not involve financial commitments and how we can foster those. A couple of things they've been working on is a frequently asked questions document that both our staff can use, but we can also publish on our website so that if folks are interested in partnering with us, or we are looking to partner with a business partner, then we kind of have this frequently asked questions document that we can both refer to make the partnership as strong as it can be. The second strategy on this one focuses around our families. So again, you can see they went through the equity audit and analysis, and also we had just finished a family survey in the month of January. And so they were taking the results from that family survey and determining next steps and action plans. They are also working on an infographic to really outline the evaluation when a child goes through an evaluation process for special education. We find our families really have a hard time understanding that process and what it all entails and what it all means. So really looking at a family-friendly way that we can explain that process and support families through it. They are also winding up a lot of their work, so they're developing a sustainability plan in which our family and community engagement division will take on a lot of this work just as a part of their daily work. Our last one is really focusing on that more internal communication systems between our staff at all different levels. And so they have really worked on creating a process for being able to engage our internal stakeholders, as well as a branding process for some of our different divisions. So they've gone through a feedback cycle on that branding process. Their next steps include kind of wrapping up the end of their implementation. So looking at working on a project brief, which will go to our district leadership team about the work that they've completed and the project that they have worked on, the process, as well as that communication plan and sustainability plan for that work. And then they are beginning to use that process with our applied behavior analysis division currently. So now I'm going to transition us into our comprehensive school improvement plan. Always about the time. So our first goal in this plan is planning for student success. We do have 3 strategies that we focus on here. The first being making sure our students are prepared for positive post-secondary outcomes. I think you guys have probably heard about, we are incorporating a tool called Charting the Life course into our IEP process. Some of the reasons for this is that it really focuses on getting student and family voice in the IEP. So we're very excited that that is rolling out. So right now we're working on that communication about that rollout. We are also figuring out how to incorporate more self-determination trainings for our students and staff. And so we are collaborating with the University of Missouri St. Louis on a grant to help develop a self-determination survey for our students. And so that work will be taking place this fall. And then we are creating some specialized trainings for our paraprofessionals, some of our related services staff, and how Charting the Life course tools can be used to foster their content. The second one is really, again, looking at our connection between student data and research-based factors. And so currently that team is working not only with Melville School District, but they are also working with Pattonville School District on a couple of projects to really look at our student outcome data. The one with Melville is very specific, and we're going to use that kind of as a case use. then hopefully be able to do that with each partner district. Pattonville is a little more globally reaching in that we're working with Matt Goodman at Pattonville School District and looking at developing a statewide database where we can really look at survey data from all the schools and help determine as a state how we might better improve our education systems. So continuing to work on those pieces. The last one here on goal 1, strategy 3, is that collaborative planning with our partner districts. So really working on that communication for two-way communication between different departments in SSD districts. And also they have collected some survey data and are beginning to do some focus groups around the partnership agreement and the collaboration tool that we use in collaborating with our partners and making sure that tool gives us the information we need to be the best partners we can be. Moving on to goal 2. This one is all about decision making and really making sure the decisions we are making are empowering our students. So when we look at our first strategy there, we're looking at programming across the county. And so one of the accomplishments that this team has done is they have operationally defined different programming and service delivery models across the county. This is important because we may have the same type of program in 3 different districts and they call it 3 different things. So therefore, sometimes it's hard for families, hard for stakeholders, sometimes even hard for us to say, okay, this is what this program is about. These are the strategies we should be using with the students. This is the type of professional learning that should occur. We're really trying to standardize some of those pieces. So they're going to be working on looking at some data from those programs across the district and then deciding next steps on how do we streamline that across the county. The second strategy in this goal is really looking at our evidence-based programs. We've developed a couple of tools in this strategy, one being a tool for our staff to use with evidence-based practices. We have a lot of evidence-based practice tools out there for folks, but finding them is sometimes a challenge. So this is almost like, if you're familiar with Google, a home doc, if you will, or a resource doc that houses everything in one place. It also has filters where teachers or administrators can filter through if they're looking for specific strategies, for specific assessments, specific tools to help them in the classroom. And that will be rolling out at the beginning of this year. The second resource that this team has really developed is more for our partner districts. And this is called the Core Resource Guide. We'll be rolling this out at our Principals Institute, as well as sharing it with our liaisons and our curriculum coordinators. This really has taken all of the core programs for one instruction for literacy, numeracy, as well as social emotional learning. We've gone through the research to talk about the effectiveness of the program and the research behind it for students with disabilities. So as a district is getting ready to adopt a new program in one of these areas, this will be a resource they can use to really review some of the research out there, as well as how well will this meet the needs of their students with disabilities within their school. Moving on to our last goal, goal number 3. This goal is about, students who are highly mobile and developing systems to help support them. We are very fortunate in that we are in every part of St. Louis County. So if we have a student moving between a school or between a district in St. Louis County, we can be the equalizer for that. We can ensure that that student is ready to go and those teachers have the information they need so that there is not a lag in program and supports for that student. So again, they have done their equity audit and they are also collaboratively problem solving around our youth that are served in the juvenile detention center. We find oftentimes when a student has been adjudicated that it's often hard for them to transition back to their home school. and get registered back in. And so they've really been working on providing resources and supports to really help those students that might be in transition. They too are working on developing what we call a quick start card, so that teachers who have students leaving or teachers that have students they are receiving will know exactly how to get to the resources they need very quickly to, again, eliminate that lag in providing services for students as they move. And then they also are working on succession. Next slide, please. Now I will open it up for any questions that you might have.
Any questions, Dr. Welcome?
Thank you for this very comprehensive report. Could you explain, I have a couple of questions. We'll start with the one that you just talked about, the juvenile detention center and trying to get students back into their home school. What if a student has been expelled from that school due to the nature of whatever reason they're in that juvenile detention center?
Then we would be looking at partnering with that district to potentially provide homebound services or in whatever way they are going to provide that education for that student. But what we want to eliminate is the gap between them leaving our school and the juvenile detention center and them accessing education in whatever way is most appropriate.
And are they getting that education while they're
We actually run the school that's in the juvenile detention.
My other question is, can you explain, if it's done at all, how the PRC, the Public Review Committee's report, is incorporated during the strategic plan and CSIP planning process?
Yes. So when we write a strategic plan, we review many resources and have many stakeholder meetings. The Public Review Committee, or PRC report, if you've seen that report before, at the end, they come up with a list of recommendations that we as a district should take into consideration. Those are key points we look at as we're developing our strategic and CSIP plan to ensure we can incorporate those as much as possible into our plans.
And then as you're going through these review processes, do you look at the PRC report again to see how it's aligning?
We
with
always consistently
progress?
monitor those recommendations from the PRC.
On 1.3 on the CSIP, you mentioned that partner school districts were surveyed. Who was sent that survey?
That would have been the liaison.
So we only got one, there was only one person from each school district that was surveyed?
I think so. I can clarify that to be sure. I'm not that strategy champion, but I can definitely clarify that. But I do know it went through the liaisons. I do know often though, the liaisons will then take it to their leadership meeting to get input from multiple voices.
I have a question. You mentioned a dashboard, and I wondered if you could speak to that a little bit more. I'm curious to know what kind of data would be housed there.
Absolutely. So some of the data that we're interested in is a lot of the data that's in a student information system, but we don't necessarily have access to every student information system at the district level. And so it would be things like attendance, discipline. It would be their state testing results, their district testing results, those types of things. Then from our side, it would be things like their IEP goals, their accommodations and modifications, and those kinds of pieces where teachers would just have that at their fingertips and be able to access it.
Okay, and then I was gonna ask about the charting the life course tools. I wanted to ask, is that something that all of the SSD staff have been trained on, and it is actively happening in districts now?
So we are in the process of a 3-year training plan. So this year, the focus is mainly secondary schools, so middle schools and high schools will be our focus. So by the end of this year, all middle schools and high schools should be trained. In some districts, they have already been using Charting the Life course, so they may have already have elementary teachers trained. The next year, then we would be training our elementary teachers. And then our third year is more our early childhood, and CTE has already kind of been using it for quite a few years now as a transition plan for them. So it's just that any of those folks who didn't have it yet in that third year would be caught up in that third year. So within 3 years, we will be implementing it as a district.
And then I have one final question. Goal number 3, you talked about transient student populations and wanting to do some work around that. I liked what you said about SSD wanting to be the equalizer, and I wondered if you could speak to that.
So, we have, especially students with disabilities, we have access to their records no matter what district they're in. And so, really some of the barriers we find families are facing is the registration system. So we can't service them until they're registered and in the schools. And so really looking at what each district does and requires for registration, so we can provide that to our families. So when they know they're moving, and let's say they're moving to Hazelwood, what does Hazelwood require for registration? So that families can just have that quick start card, be able to know and have the documentation they need when they go in to register so that they don't hit barriers. And hopefully that will help our partner districts too, because they don't have to keep sending families back to get something additional.
All right, thank you.
You mentioned those dashboards you talked about how just the partner districts and SSD don't always, the information doesn't always, you're not treating apples to apples sort of thing. Tell me more about what you're doing so that the partner districts and you can really communicate in the same way.
So what we're looking at is creating a dashboard that both partner districts and SSD have access to. Data from the partner districts is feeding into that system, as well as data from our system is feeding into that system.
How's the data?
Yes, and then both sides are feeding in, so you can really get a complete picture of the students.
That's awesome.
I was just gonna ask a question to kind of make a comment. I'm really not a techie person, but when you were talking about the dashboard, because we've been talking about this dashboard for a long time. Has anybody ever thought about making it so that it kind of be, might not be the right term, but bilateral, so it's going both ways, but more on such, I'm thinking like Apple and Android. So no matter what your base system is, you can feed data in, it's gonna look the same, and it's gonna look the same going the other way, even if you don't have the same system. Because I know everybody's not on SIS, everybody's not on the same student.
And that's the goal. That is the goal. Because right now, yes, we have some students, we have some schools on Power School, we have some schools on, Focus, we have, there's all the different Infinite Campus, so there's all the different information systems, and they house their data a little bit differently. So our goal is to have a system where all of that can come in and it's uniform.
Okay.
So she said you've been working, I'm sorry, I'm new to this.
Yeah.
But she said you've been working on this for a long time. She's been hearing about, how long?
Years.
Well, I would say Marcus Shane is one of our technicians, and he said as long as he's been here, it's been about 15 years.
Okay, but if you've been working on this for 15 years and at the rate technology changes,
That's pretty
I mean, like,
That is the challenge.
like, are we chasing our tails? I mean, like, honestly, that, there's no way what you started 15 years ago is still applies today. And at what point do we plan for this to be done, I guess is my question.
Yeah. Well, we're hopeful that we are on to, part of the issue is this is very, very specialized, and a lot of companies don't want to work with us because it's going to take a lot of money and manpower, and they don't want to dedicate it to it because it's not marketable for them to sell it to someone else. So that's been part of our challenge. So we have found through this grant process, someone who's willing to do that and help us build this.
I'd also assume that there's no true ending, that it's always going to be a constantly evolving system.
Yeah, and
No matter
in our
what.
spirit of continuous improvement, we would want it to do that. We always want it to get better. But we're just excited that we hopefully have a good start.
To quell I can see your head turning over there, and I agree. If all of the partner districts chose to use one template, then this would be a lot easier. But because the autonomy of all the districts, we use our own stuff and it's just. the
Oh, I
nature-
understand that.
nature of the thing, it's what their task with trying
Oh,
to integrate.
I understand that, but I mean, like, I guess hospitals have figured it out, you know, I mean, like, I don't know, but.
I guess my question is, with the technology, if a child goes to a different school and their school does not offer, their school offers certain services and they go to a different school that doesn't offer the services, will their information be provided in the, because not all of the same school districts have the same SSD services for all students.
Sure, yes. And so they would be able to see, like, and we have that to an extent now through the IEP, right? The IEP describes the services that that student needs. So if they transfer to another district, then we see what that district has to offer and what can meet the needs of that student in the best way.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, thank you, Dr. Bowman. Next up, we got the budget update.
Next up is Cindy Wildman. Please remember when you are asking questions to say your name and the district just for those who are live stream.
Thank you. Thank you for that reminder, Dr. Mack.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Governing Council. Again, my name is Cindy Ryleman, Chief Financial Officer, and tonight we're going to review the fiscal year 2026 budget. But first, I would like to start off with the questions and answers that were asked by the Board of Education and provided by us so that we can hopefully answer maybe some questions you might have down the road as we present tonight. The handouts have been provided to you, so I'm just going to kind of quickly skim them and read. I won't read them to you. I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the answers and some points. So one question was, what is the object 6142? It's on the monthly financial statements under salaries. And that is the object code that's used for temporary classroom related expenses, typically reporting extra duty pay and some of the additional expenses for certified teachers or staff assisting in classrooms. One question asked of me was what concerns me most about the 25-26 budget. And that really is the key variables that we don't know about, right? So what's going to happen and how could that detrimentally or negatively impact the budget? Some budget line items that carry the most uncertainty and potential impact: health insurance. We're having meetings now about some health insurance related costs, and those costs really do concern me. And some of the, when we talk about uncertainty of the budget and what could have some significant fiscal impacts. What is a self-insurance fund? So this is a fund that's able to track the financial health of insurance when we put the premiums in the fund and we report the claims from the fund. It helps us manage costs and make informed decisions and hopefully potentially reduce any premiums for our staff. What is the effects of coming off of hold harmless? So special school district is a hold harmless district. And what hold harmless typically means is you cannot be held to harm when a new foundation formula is presented and approved by the general legislature for the state of Missouri. So back in 05-06, when Senate Bill 287 was adopted by the state, special school district received so much funding, we cannot be harmed. We cannot receive less funding than we did in that year. So that's what hold harmless means. And there really are no negative effects coming off of hold harmless, because when you're on the formula, you benefit by any of the additional funding that's put into the formula. How does the basic formula calculation affect this? The current foundation formula assumes that we don't receive anything less than we did in 05-06. Does student population affect hold harmless status? Yes, it does, as enrollment affects average daily attendance, which is what the foundation formula is calculated on. Additional funding is also based on weighted categories like IEP counting, limited English proficient counting, as well as free and reduced lunch student counting. Do we have a benefits committee for SSD? Yes, we do have an insurance committee. The new money that was calculated, is that really 3.9 million? Not exactly. When I look at new money, we look at the additional revenue that's coming into the district from property taxes or state aid funding. Are we part of the community eligibility provision? Yes, we are. Some of our schools qualify for that. Can we revisit GLP-1 costs and alternatives? Absolutely. We're going to be providing more information coming soon. Can we raise the tax rate on the county's total assessed value? Tax rates are used and calculated via the state auditor's formula, and they can only be increased. Tax rates can only be increased when voter approval is required. And the Hancock Amendment does allow some of those increases, but typically Hancock Amendment typically rolls back tax rates during a reassessment year. Is the freeze on assessed value or taxes paid for the senior citizens? The freeze is actually on the amount the tax amount paid by the qualifying individual. So if an individual were to pay $1,000 in 2024, they'll keep paying that amount until either the tax freeze is annulled or changed or modified, or they don't qualify for it. They sell their home or whatever. When the assessed values are reported to us, will they be net of the senior property tax values? They will actually be reported in total. So the assessor's process is that they're going to assess all the property and report that out in total. Again, the freeze, the effect is on the actual tax amount paid by the taxpayers themselves. What are certificates of participation? That is a financial instrument used by government entities to finance capital projects. So you can use general obligation bonds, which a lot of school districts use, and therefore have a debt service fund. But we actually have certificates of participation. Where is our certificate of participation debt reported? You'll find it in the budget document that we're going to talk about tonight on pages 111 to 113. How much do we owe? It's about $3.2 million in principal and interest for our certificates of participation currently. They're repaid as of a set amortization schedule that was determined when we actually entered into those financial instruments. And then our underwriter, Stiefel, and UMB is our agent for our certificates of participation. And then another detailed question that came in from the governing council, the 2024-25 budget staff counts are higher than the 24-25 actual staff counts. And while the 24-25 budget counts are higher than 25-26, the 24-25 actual staff counts are lower than the 25-26. I'm not going to keep reading it. I'll just kind of talk about the answers. So 24-25 budgeted staff counts are higher than 24-25 actuals because there's vacancies, right? We've all had trouble filling staff positions. So we might budget amounts, but we don't always have that budget amount in total because we're not able to fill every position. Therefore, we have substitutes and other different things. So the vacancies. While the 24-25 budgeted staff counts are higher than the 25-26 budgeted staff accounts. And again, the reduction in the budgeted staff accounts are due to our staffing strategy around riding the ship. So you'll see that those budgeted staff counts are decreasing. The 24-25 actual staff accounts are lower than the 25-26 budgeted staff accounts. And that really has to do with the fact that we are budgeting staff to ensure that we are covering the services that are needed by our students that we serve. And so we had vacancies, that was the actual amount, but we actually have a budgeted amount of staff in order to provide for our services for our students. So we're going to strive for that budgeted amount, just knowing that there may not be the people to hire and the vacancy rate is still out there. So those were some of the questions that were proposed. If you have any questions around those, or if you have any additional questions after that, we can talk about those. Tonight, our discussion is going to be about two main outcomes, the sections and the content in the budget document, which most of you heard at the March 3rd meeting. We kind of talked about what the budget document would look like, the sections and stuff. So we're going to kind of cover that information. But really, we're going to spend a lot of time understanding the components of the budget regarding revenues and expenditures. The financial section is what we're going to really. So just to recap, I wanted to remind everyone that the budget document that's being discussed and proposed tonight is a culmination of several meetings that have taken place. So we provided a budget forecasting session with the Board of Education in August at a work study. We had a board retreat as well in September, which was the sole focus of budget planning. And then we also provided the same information to the Governing Council in September. Our finance committee convened to also preview the preliminary budget document at the end of January. And then the Board of Education reviewed at the February work study, which was also presented to the Governing Council, reviewed on March 3rd. The Finance Committee reconvened on May 5th to review what you're seeing tonight, the preview of the budget document tonight. And then the Board of Education also had a work study on May 13th, as well as approved the document on May 27th. So with that, we'll jump in. Just a reminder, our mission: empower students of all learning abilities to excel to their greatest potential, and also help students realize their full potential in life and learning. This budget document that we're reviewing tonight also includes the values towards commitment, collaboration, and equity. Writing the ship purpose and the goal still holds true for our budget that we're presenting tonight for fiscal year 2026. We're focusing on staffing and the reallocation and reductions, capital projects reallocation, as well as our non-wage cost containment measures. So we'll cover some of this information as we go throughout the budget presentation. The budget district has a determined budget process that we follow that focuses allocating our resources effectively and efficiently while serving our students. The budget presented tonight is going to provide a detailed analysis of the revenues and expenditures so that you can truly understand what's included in the FY26 budget. Per Missouri statute, the budget is required to have the following components. So the budget has to have a budget message. Revenues and expenditures has to be included as well as a debt amortization schedule, and then a general budget summary. You'll see that the document that presented tonight, the COMB document, we have that, and we have a lot more information, right? So we want to make sure that everybody truly understands what's included in the school district budget going forward for FY26. So in March 3rd, we brought to the Governing Council the design of the budget, how it was going to look. We're following the ASBO International Meritorious Budget Award criteria and components. Knowing that in providing a document like that, we're providing transparent information as well as accurate information so that we can build trust and clearly communicate the district's financial information to our stakeholders. The executive summary. So there are 4 sections included in the meritorious budget, including the executive summary, organizational section, financial section, informational section. We're really going to dive into the financial section for the most part, but we'll hit the highlights for the other sections as well. The executive summary. It's designed to include information from all the other sections so that it can be a standalone listable document. So that if someone doesn't want to pick up and read all the pages that are included and see all the information, they can pick up the executive summary and get a good synopsis of all the sections and the information that's being presented. Some of the information may seem duplicated in the executive summary, but that's just a requirement of the meritorious budget award criteria. Just a reminder, the budget is a fluid document. It's based on the best information that we have at the time when we're building the budget. The General Assembly concluded the state budgets. However, the budget has now gone to the governor for approval, and just keep in mind, he has line item veto ability. So he can strike out things at various points of the state budget. And so he has until June 30th to actually approve the state budget that came to him. So we'll see what he ends up doing with the state budget at that level. In addition, St. Louis County is still accepting the senior property tax raise applications through June 30th. So again, this is just another variable, and we'll just have to wait and see what these situations will ultimately mean to SSD as well as our partner districts. The district will update the board and the governing council as we go throughout fiscal year 2026, communicating any changes and adjustments that's happening within the various local, state, federal areas of our resources, and making sure that you're aware of any changes and adjustments that need to take place. And as well, we're knowing and understanding that this budget is a financial guide, right? So it's based on the assumptions, it's based on the variables. It will guide us throughout the year. We know things may happen, there may be unexpected things, and we'll adjust to that and we'll pivot. but it will help us in continue righting our ship and reducing any deficit going forward. The organizational section. So one of the things I really like about this is if anyone were new to SSD and the services that we offer and how we exist and why we exist, they could come to the organizational section and really get an understanding of special school district and what our purpose is and everything. So it includes the overview of the district and how we were formed, the history of the district. It includes the regions we serve and showing in map form as to how the regions are broken up. It talks about our school directory. It shares our personnel resources as well as how we're governed by the governing council as well as our board of education. And then it also explains our funds, our counting, how we account for things, and how we code things for DESE, as well as some district policies and regulations that the district must follow. So before we dig into the financial section, so this is where we're going to do more of our deep dive. I really want to talk about some key takeaways before we get into the financial pieces around revenues and expenditures. So we are doing righting the ship, and we are completing year 1 of writing our ship plan. And so know that this is just a reminder, this is a multi-year plan and we have a lot to go. We've made a lot of progress, but there's still work to take place. Year 2 will include the reduction of staff without impacting services to students. We want to not impact the classroom. We want to keep the impact from our reductions and our budget work to take place away from the classroom as much as possible. The budget reductions not only are impacting staff and benefits, however, we are really working hard at purchase services and supplies and really reducing budgets and evaluating those budgets as well, including our capital, which will focus on that by itself. Assumptions, we're still unsure what the state level will do. We still have the senior property tax freeze to consider, and there's still some questions remaining at the federal level. So we know that, I was in a meeting, we know that although DESE is full running here, the U.S. Department of Ed is kind of struggling to maybe pull down or draw down some money at the federal level. So there's still some challenges at the federal level that we still need to work through and figure out, but ultimately, the budget is a fluid document, so we will still have some adjustments and assumptions that might change. But again, it will be a financial guide, keeping the Board of Education and Governing Council informed as to how we pivot and how we adjust going forward. So this first slide I want to share with you these two numbers. I just kind of want you to keep in mind. So 75 million and 36 million. And we're going to come back to these numbers later on in the presentation. But these two numbers really represent the amount of hard work that's gone into preparing this fiscal year 26 budget for presentation and for approval. There's still a lot of work that needs to take place. We're not there yet. But I can tell you that our team is dedicated to making it happen and getting the work done. So I just want to let you sink in on 75 million and 36 million, and we'll come back to these numbers here in a future slide. So as we deep dive into the fiscal year 26 budget, we're going to cover in the financial section historical financial information as well as current information and what's most important, forecasted information, right? Where are we going? How is it going to look in the future? We're going to provide financial information for all the funds. So you get a whole picture of all funds, but we're also going to break it down into operating funds, which is the general and special revenue fund, as well as the capital projects fund individually. So the district has taken a conservative approach, both in its revenue and expenditure projections. We're currently reflecting a $36 million deficit in our operating funds. Again, operating funds is general fund and special revenue fund combined. There are still many variables that can impact these results, and we're going to keep in mind as we go through just to kind of make sure that we keep our eyes on what the variables are and how are they impacted. So key budget considerations that we looked at: aligning our budget requests with achieving strategic goals. So Molly just talked about our CSIP and our strategic plan. So we want to make sure that our budget is aligned to achieving those goals. Providing our staff with competitive compensation, ensuring our support services are funded, and maintaining a capital budget for facility improvements, making sure that we have the best facilities for our students. So with our conservative approach, we worked to maintain a targeted fund balance between 30 and 35% going for fiscal year 26 as well as for our forecasted years. So understanding that we continue to need to cash flow our district from July 1st, when our fiscal year starts, to December 31st, when we start receiving our property tax revenues, that a healthy fund balance helps us not have to borrow or have to do any short-term borrowing or tax anticipation notes. So we absolutely want to make sure that we have a healthy fund balance percentage when we start the new fiscal year so that we don't have to run into any borrowing needs. The administration is committed to ensuring financial stability while also meeting the district's educational and operational goals. So let's focus on revenues. Calendar year 2025 was a reassessment year, and the county reassessment values increased over 15%, totaling just about $40 billion for SSD as a whole in the county. As a result of the Hancock Amendment, the district's tax rate is projected to roll back to 0.8595 cents. We won't know that number for sure until we get past the Board of Equalization numbers in August, and we come back to our Board of Education to actually certify and present the tax rate that will get approved and then submitted to the county in late September, statutory deadlines by October 1st. So we'll know that tax rate for the full year when that time frame comes. Current property taxes are estimated to increase in the FY26 budget, as well as Proposition C or sales tax revenues. They're estimated to increase. They're based on a per pupil rate of $1,495. That's what we get from DESE. They estimate our per pupil amounts for certain revenues, and the sales tax revenues is one. Proposition C or sales tax revenue is really dependent on the health of the economy as well as the spending patterns of taxpayers. So we'll keep an eye on this because we all know that there's some tariffs and some different things going on. And so we just need to keep an eye on what's going on with the economy and everything. Moving on, just kind of wanted to talk about the district strategy regarding investments and kind of how that's looking and what's changed a little bit. So historically, special school district, we've kept our investments in a more short-term approach. And this has been good when you've had high interest rates and stuff. However, we know that the Federal Open Market Committee has been reducing rates and that's been on the forefront of a lot of economical news right now. So we've kind of invested a new philosophy regarding our investments that's keeping more of our funds liquid, but we're also trying to match our expenditures and our outflows of monies to our maturities. And so we know that we're spending down balances. So we wanted to try to take advantage of some of the interest rates. So if interest rates drop and we can lock in at a higher rate now for a longer term, if interest rates go down, we'll be investing money at a higher rate than what interest rates are. The return on investment between what we lock in at and if interest rates go down can help us with our investment strategy. So trying to look into that and see how we can do that. What this graph is showing you, so we've talked with our investment representatives and our long-term investment strategy changed a little bit. So the dark green, which is on the bottom, really represents a liquidity target. And so we've kind of made that target around $52 million is what's liquid. We can get to it anytime. The teal or the dark blue colors represent our proposed $50 million reserve strategy. So what that means is we've got 10 million in liquid, but we've got the remaining 40 million in a 24-month ladder. So every 6 months, $10 million is coming mature, and we can choose either to keep it liquid and keep it, or we can reinvest it back out depending on what the economy and what the rates are doing. The gray represents our short-term investments right now. So that is our commercial paper that we've invested with various banks that we have relationships with. And then the light green is proposed investments down the road. And then the blue is any excess cash that we might have. So that's just a visual to kind of help see what our strategy is going forward.
Is that in our book? You know, does anybody know if does anybody know what page that is?
In the budget document.
Okay.
Just in the presentation.
Just having a hard time That's fine. I just could see it better. If it was closer to me. That's all.
I have it.
It's in the board docs.
It's in board docs. Oh, I can look at it here then. Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Absolutely. Next, I was going to talk about the short-term rates. They're more volatile and they're expecting to drop. And so again, we locked in some longer-term rates so that as the rates are expected to normalize, you can see they're kind of flattening. The district is going to be able to earn that higher rate on its longer-term investments. And what really made sense to me on this graphic was if you look at the gray line, which represents April 17th of 2024, and it was around that 5.25, almost 5.5 area. Then if you look at the blue line, which is for April 17th, 2025, around the same time period, had we done this a year ago, we would be making that, 5% kind of compared to where the rates are now. So hopefully this is a visual that kind of shows that by locking in a longer term, there's a potential for a higher yield going forward. This next slide just shows our diversified investment portfolio, what we've invested in by type, as well as how we've divested in by entity. So we don't have it all in one place. We put it in different locations and different entities, and we are investing in different types of investments. So let's focus on some revenue highlights, state revenues. Primarily, one of the state revenues is basic formula. So the budget that is presented before you tonight, fiscal year 26 budget, includes a state adequacy target of $6,760. Again, this was a conservative estimate at the time. It's based on what the House presented as well as what the governor presented. We now know, since the state legislature has finished, that they did pass a budget including a state adequacy target of 7145. However, again, we won't know if the governor will actually sign it or not. He's got line item veto, so he could change it back to 6760 or he could leave it at 7145. We just don't know that. So right now, the conservative budget that you have in front of you has the revenues of 6760. If the foundation formula is funded at the state adequacy target of 7145, again, SSD has the potential of being on the formula, which means we will benefit by that higher state adequacy target. And based on the calculation that we have, that could result in about approximately additional $2 million to the district. The classroom trust fund monies or gaming revenues are projected based on a $576 per prior year weighted average daily attendance amount. This is lower than what it was estimated for fiscal year 25. This is also down because fiscal year 25 is expected to have a lower number of lottery sales. So if you remember back in the day, about a year ago, maybe we had $1 billion lottery sales and Powerballs and everything and all, and people were going out and spending and everything. We haven't had that recently. And so a lot of people aren't going out buying lottery tickets and stuff. So the gaming revenues are not what they were about a year or so ago. In addition, the state is still committed to fully funding education, which for SSD is about $24 million. So when we look at federal revenues, special school district receives about $70 million in federal funding. And although some of the federal revenues are decreasing, it's important to know that we actually budget federal revenues with a neutral impact. So what that means is we budget the same amount of revenues for federal as we do expenditures for federal. Primarily because what happens, your federal funds, you actually spend them first, and then you request your reimbursement from DESI to be reimbursed for what you spent. And the primary reason that most school districts do that is because you have to be very careful of the Cash Management Investment Act, because the federal government does not want you earning interest on their federal monies. And so most districts, just to avoid that interest or penalties on that kind of money, they'll spend the money first and then ask for reimbursement from DESI or back from the feds.
Could you repeat what you just said, the cash what?
Which part?
The part about they don't want you to spend. That's what I was, okay.
Yes, ma'am. So the Cash Management Investment Act from the federal government really says you can't draw down federal funds, earn interest on it, and then spend it, kind of a thing. They really want you to either have to spend it within 3 days so that you can't really earn a lot of interest on it, or what conservative districts, school districts do. They'll spend the money first and then draw it down. And then you don't have to worry about that piece of it. So this slide shows the revenues by source for all funds. So you can see the three actuals for the prior years, as well as the current amended budget for the year that we're in, and then the preliminary budget that's being proposed. And so you can see that our total revenues are just north of $579 million for all the funds, which is just about a $4 million increase in revenues. This is a pie chart that just shows how we receive most of our funds from local sources. We're heavy reliant on our local sources, but just to kind of give you an idea of how all of our revenues break out by our source. So now we're going to shift our focus to expenditures. Since 88% of the district's budget is in salaries and benefits, we first look at staffing. The district decreased staffing due to reduction and reallocation, all again while trying to focus the impact away from classrooms and striving for equity around and across our partner districts. So ensuring that we have equity in our partner districts as well. Salaries were negotiated with teachers, while our other union groups were already moved within their negotiated schedules. And then benefits are expected to increase due to rising healthcare costs and the impact that special school district is seeing with the GLP-1s. This slide is showing our high-level staffing numbers. One of the questions that we talked about prior to jumping into this presentation about the actual numbers versus the budgeted numbers. So you can see that the budgeted FTE for FY26 is 5,660.5. The actual numbers actually represent the employees that were assigned in positions at the end of the year. So we did this because we didn't want to duplicate or overstate our positions, because if someone started in a position and left and then someone came into that position, we didn't want to double up or duplicate that number. So we just took the actual people that were in their positions assigned at the end of the year. This slide shows salary objects by their object code. So again, there's more detail here as to how the certified salaries are broken out and the non-certified salaries are broken out. And you can see that the fiscal year 26 budget for salaries is $392,350,574. These next few slides will be by object code for all of the areas. So this is the benefits by object code. And as you can see, benefits are decreasing primarily due to the reduction in staff. However, the largest increase offsetting those decreases are really in that medical and life insurance object code. We will know more about our benefits come the winter when we actually have everybody in their positions, right? Everybody's hired and in positions, as well as once we have open enrollment and everybody's secured what benefit choices they're taking and everything. So once we know more of that information, we'll have a better sense as to really how the benefits will align out. But again, we'll bring any adjustments and any of that information to the Board of Education and the Governing Council. So the benefit budget is $140,203,817. Next is the detail by object code for purchase services. I can honestly say I was very, very proud of the team working with all the budget owners that we did. They worked, again, very hard trying to reduce where they could in both purchase services and supplies. We'll see supplies next. In 6311, which is where Kelly Services and our sub budget is, we reduced that primarily because we have fewer positions and we're focusing on reducing the vacancy rate. So therefore, we're reducing the need for subs. So that object line has been reduced, as well as 6341 contracted pupil transportation was primarily reduced because of taking the Parkway services back in-house and gaining some efficiencies in that regard. And so you can see purchase services budget for fiscal year 26 is $51,666,337. In In regards to supplies, again, a lot of work was done here to reduce supplies where we could. We're gonna keep an eye on electric and gasoline. We'll monitor these in case rate changes happen with Ameren and other situations, as well as gasoline, and any economic influences that might come as a result for those two categories. So the supply budget's the $19,433,548. This slide shows the financial summary for all funds. You've got the 3 years of actuals. You have the 25 amended budget and then the proposed preliminary 25-26 budget showing the $39 million deficit for all funds. So this is the general fund, the special fund, and the capital fund, all of them being represented here. This slide is focusing just on the operating funds, which is the general and special revenue funds, the majority of our operations for staff. Remember the slide that we talked about earlier. So we had the slide where we had the 75 million with the arrow going down to 36 million. So this is really where I want to draw your attention back to those numbers and reflect on that. So you can see the two yellow columns are our FY25 budget. So we have the original budget that was brought to the board and the governing council back in June of the $74.8 million deficit. We worked really hard this year implementing strategies, getting that deficit down to 48.5. We'll see at the end of June how we truly end up for fiscal year 25. And then you can see for fiscal year 26, the preliminary budget around that $36 million. So, you know, last year a budget of budgeted deficit $75 million, and we got it down to 36 for next year. So a lot of progress is made. We're going in the right direction that was discussed earlier, but there's still a lot of hard work that's going to have to happen and all. So with that being said, we also focused on, you can see the estimated fund balance right now for fiscal year 26 is 38.11 for the fund balance percentage. And then this next slide, I wanted to show just a couple pictorials and visuals for everybody to show that, you know, we are moving in the right direction. You know, the 74 million to the 48 to the 36. So really trying to right the ship and turn it around and go in the right direction. So just another visual to share as well with the governing council. And then I think it's always important to make sure, we talked about righting the ship was a multi-year plan. So we want to make sure that we keep a forecast in front of the governing council and the Board of Education as well. So I want to keep presenting this to both governing bodies so that we can see the work that's being done, as well as decisions that will have to take place or that we'll have to focus on for strategies going forward in the future in order to maintain that 30 to 35% fund balance. So more work still to take place, but there's a potential of having a balanced budget by FY29, depending on the strategies that we put in place and the reductions that take place over the next couple of years. So just wanted to keep that in front of everybody. We will, again, keep both governing bodies informed and everything, but I like bringing this forward to kind of keep you all as a reminder that we are looking into the future years and what we need to still do. We've shared this visual with the board and the governing council in the past. I just want to continue to keep it in mind. So the orange was our previous path fund balance percentage, and it showed the trajectory going downward. With our new strategies with righting the ship and the focus on our targeted fund balance percentage, the blue line represents where we hope to stay and where we expect to stay going forward. Now we're going to shift our focus to the capital projects fund. So this slide is showing that we're anticipating our expenditures to be covered by the 3 cents. So we can, part of our righting the ship is reallocating the capital projects fund levy. And so we've had, as you can see, some 7 cents in previous years. We did 2 cents for FY25. We're projected to do 3 cents for FY26 for the capital projects fund. And you can see by the pie chart on the right, most all of the capital projects fund is funded by local sources, which is generated by those tax rates. Again, we're going to allocate 3 cents to support the capital needs. The Board of Education recently reviewed a 10-year facilities plan that was presented. It's instrumental in planning and determining the capital expenditures going forward. and therefore key in determining the amount of revenues that we need to support the expenditures for that plan. Just a reminder, our district does not have general obligation funds. However, we do have certificates of participation, which are funded through the capital projects fund. And so we have to make sure that we do budget for those participation notes, and those certificates of participation are governed by the district's Educational Facilities Authority, which meets annually to meet and go over those certificates of participation and report out to the state. So this is familiar. We've looked at these for the other sources. Now we're just looking at capital outlay by object code, so you can get a sense as to where those expenditures are taking place and where we've had some savings. One key area here in the capital area is buses. And so we haven't been able to get buses. Most districts haven't been able to get buses. So that'll be contingent on the supply chain issue for buses and if we're actually able to get buses in. So we'll keep an eye on that depending on what happens with the buses supply chain. And then again, we do a capital projects fund forecast so that we can keep that in mind, and we're aligning this with the 10-year facilities plan that was presented and going forward, so we can strategize the amount of tax rate that's needed to fund that plan. We're going to strive for a healthy fund balance, because you need a healthy fund balance in your capital projects as well, because of those unanticipated emergencies that might take place. If you have an HVAC go down, if you have a water main break that happens that you have to repair. So anything like that, we need to make sure that we have a healthy fund balance going forward. So keeping an eye on that and aligning that with the plan that has been approved. So now we're going to go into the informational section. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this section because it really is just additional information for the budget reader to get a sense of what's in the budget and everything. So we're going to refer to various pages within the budget document as we go through this section. But for the most part, it includes the assessed valuation information, property tax rate information. It'll give you information about the revenue components. It includes the calculation for the basic formula. It also includes enrollment and district information, surveys, because they want to make sure that you're surveying your parents, your families, your parents, your staff, and your students. And then because we're in education, it's very important to have a glossary and acronyms so that people understand what our terminology is, because we like our acronyms. So we get our assessed valuation from the St. Louis County website. That's the website where we go. Every St. Louis County district will go to the same site. And it's going to give us our assessed values for personal, commercial, residential, and agriculture. And that's what goes into determining how to set our tax rate. And you can get more information and see these that are in the document on those pages between 128 and 129. This slide is our historical tax rates and assessed valuations, and you can see by reassessment year what the effect has been, and then what the projected tax rate and assessed value is for fiscal year 26. This is our tax rates by fund. So we talked a lot about the operating funds and the capital projects fund, so you can see how the tax rate generates revenue for each of those funds, and then what the total tax rate is per $100 in assessed valuation. I like to include this information. We'll display it again when we get into September and October for setting our tax rate, but just allowing the reader and the understanding of how the impact of tax rates and assessed values is on their actual homeowner situation. And so they can kind of get a sense as to how real estate is assessed. And then the next slide kind of gives an impact to a homeowner, right? So if a homeowner has a market value home of $300,000 and the projected tax rate is the 0.8595 cents, that homeowner is going to pay about $489.92 in property tax. And so you can see from the prior year, it's a reduction of about $60, and then it's about a 30% reduction over the prior 10-year period. Again, the budget document is going to include various information regarding those revenue components. So state aid is one of those revenue components. And this just kind of shows that the governor's recommendation, what his numbers were. what the state adequacy target, if it's funded at 7145, how the district would benefit. You can actually see more of the calculations in the budget document if you want to dive into the numbers and how it all works. But again, that information is more detailed out in the document in this informational section. We also include district information. So we have a school finance report. We've got district information. So this all comes from DESI's website. They have a comprehensive data system. So a lot of the information that's included in the informational system comes from DESI. And that's in the budget document. And I mentioned we do surveys. So we wanted to put some information of how we survey our parents and our staff and our students and what that engagement looks like. And those visuals and information is also included in the budget document. And then again, we have our glossary and our acronyms, and those are found on those pages in the budget document as well. That was a lot of information for the budget presentation tonight. What questions do you have for me?
I just wanted to say something really quick in the spirit of what Garrett Meach said at the beginning of the meeting. For those of us who have been here for a few years, I want to say that I really appreciate the job you're doing, and I'm not saying the people before you weren't capable, but this really speaks to Dr. Macklin and the team you have around you for enabling you to share this information. The issues of the past have been well documented at this point by other sources. It would not be appropriate to discuss in this setting, but again, I'm sure this information was available before, but now I think the Board of Education is better informed. I think the governing council is better informed in that you are giving us this information that we have requested. So I really appreciate it. Really appreciate Dr. Macklin for spearheading this multi-year effort at this point. But again, I'm not saying that this wasn't available in the past, but maybe it was not a priority to share it, and now it is, obviously, due to the nature of where we're at. So I just want to say thank you so much, especially your presentation at the last meeting was especially thorough. I appreciated it, so thank you. Love hearing about the new standards that we're following, so just want to put that out there.
Yes, I probably have the easier question. So on your money that you get for the ADA, is that just for students receiving services that attend special school district school buildings? Or like, do you get an ADA for students in Hazelwood who have IEPs? Do you understand the question?
I do, absolutely, thank you, yes. So SSD receives foundation formula funding, state aid, based on the services that we provide for our students for average daily attendance. However, we get the additional weighting from the partner districts for the special education students. So when Hancock or Hazelwood goes through the calculation and they determine their threshold based on the special education percentage for students, they determine how many IEP students they have and what their threshold is. That additional weighting comes to SSC.
Okay.
So whatever the additional weighting is for all 22 partner districts, that's what we get, and that's what feeds into our formula.
Okay.
It makes it harder for us, but we may not always know what your additional weighting is during the year. But yes, that's where we get from the partner districts. You're welcome.
Teresa. Teresa Pierce, the Normandy. I was looking in the budget workbook here, and policy DBH, was it not revised before 1984? It says revised in this page 95. So it says revised in 3. Was it not revised before then? That's hasn't never explained some of the budget mishaps.
Based on the date adopted and date revised, that seems appropriate. But I do not know if that is official or not, but I would assume this came straight off our website, so I'm assuming it is.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I have 3 hands. I
Oh,
don't
go ahead.
know.
I'm sorry. I was trying to read the DBH. I'm sorry.
Next, I just wanted to ask a quick question about transportation, and just the budget line item for that. So my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that with transportation, it's if you have a student who is homeless, and under the McKinney-Vento Act, the transportation would be covered. Typically, the cost is split between the two districts. The child became homeless in the district that they chose to go to. I just wanted to ask, just out of curiosity, for students who receive services through special school district, does special's budget pick up any of that cost? Or is that completely on the districts?
Let me look into that and get back to you. So to make sure I understand the question, the homeless students, McKinney-Vento students, and how that is split between SSD and the partner districts.
Whether it is or not. So for example, if you become homeless in Ferguson, Florissant, but you move in with a relative in Hazelwood, Hazelwood and Ferg Floor was split the cost.
Yes.
So it just was curious to know if special school district, in the case of a student who has a disability, if the budget covers any of that. Sheila Power Walker, Ferguson, Florissant.
Who else had a question? Debbie? Debbie Hopper, Parkway School District. Could you please go back to page 35 and talking about the decrease of the $5.8 million in instructional services and tuition? You mentioned services and substitutes, and can you just go over that? I know trying to keep this a quick pace, but I get a lot of questions about that. So
Yes.
could you please explain that one more time? And then I have a couple other questions after that.
So in essence, what's happening with the 6311 Kelly Services budget is, let's say if there's a budget of 17 million in the past that had been spent because of subs, the goal is we've done some reduction in staffing, so the amount of subs that would be needed would be less because we've reduced the number of staff that we have. And so by reducing the number of staff we have, we're reducing, hopefully, especially if we can reduce our vacancy rate and hire everybody. So if we have 5,660 FTEs, we're able to hire everybody at 5,660. We would only need subs for when they get sick or when they take off for PDAs or stuff like that, right? But if we're not able to hire all 5,660, then we're gonna have more subs, right? So the goal is we've reduced staff, we've reduced the number of staff that we need. So we can hopefully hire all the staff we do need and budget for, reducing the need for subs, therefore reducing the budget for subs. Does that make sense?
Okay. So are you comfortable that what you had budgeted is sufficient to make sure that if you don't get those positions filled, that there's still enough in the budget to cover substitutes to be able to provide the necessary staff that are needed in the classrooms?
I will say I feel comfortable at this moment in time. So remember, budget is fluid. And so we're still going through the hiring process and still filling positions. So I would say when we start July 1 or even when we start the school year, knowing how many staff we've actually hired and how many positions we've actually filled will give me a better barometer as to how comfortable I feel.
And with the Kelly contract, is there any issues with reducing our budget here in negotiating the contract with Kelly Services? So do you have to provide X number of staff, to guarantee a certain number with Kelly in order to have a contract in place with them and making sure that we're able to meet whatever that contractual obligations are?
I do not know the specifics of the Kelly Services contract, so can we look into that and get back to you?
I have just a question. I was just curious too, if you have like maybe retired staff coming back to service long-term subs?
That would be a question for our chief HR officer. I do not know the answer to that.
Okay, I was just curious.
Any additional questions?
So a couple of my follow-up questions to that. On the supplies side, this is on page 36 of the presentation. It has to do with the budget change, a reduction of almost $1 million in supplies, technology, and then another 192,000 in instructional materials. Could you elaborate on what student affected at all? It's line item 6412.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the true details are right now. I'd need to go back to the specific budget requests that were submitted. Because 6412 is primarily going to be driven by our technology department. 6433, I am not sure who owns the majority of that $3.2 million budget. So I would need to look at the departments, figure out who comprises those amounts and get back to you.
And then in your earlier conversation about the whole technology piece of the platforms, trying to talk to each other between the partner districts and is that in the budget? Is there any?
What Dr. Bolton referred to earlier?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Dr. Bolton, yeah, in her presentation. Is anything for that budgeted in this budget?
She stated that was a grant.
So it's a grant, okay. Only 100% grant money.
I don't know if it's 100%.
I was just curious if there's any additional expenses that it should be in the budget to support that endeavor.
So I will say that we have a lot of budget owners, and this is a big budget. I do not have it memorized, but I will detail and get back to you, I promise.
Okay.
So
my last question has to do with a statement that was made during the budget presentation, and it's in here somewhere about compensation for the different bargaining units is based upon the current contracted, negotiated contracts between those bargaining units. So about a year ago, when we all learned about how some of those contracts were negotiated, has there been any movement to change that process, moving forward with how those contracts are negotiated? And are we going to be able to sustain?
I can tell you that all 6 bargaining units will be negotiated this next year. As to what will transpire, I don't know that.
Do we know the process?
So one of the things that we spoke to here really almost a year ago is really policy HA, which speaks to clearly defines the negotiation process and what that really means. Just ensuring that there is transparency in that process, ensuring that the team established, ensuring that team established goes to the Board of Education, what those pieces really mean. I do believe that this negotiation process that just took place, that just ended, was very, very transparent in being able to ensure that policy HA was founded upon those pieces. As Cindy Rahman mentioned, we will be negotiating all 6 bargaining units here next year for the next 3 years, just as relates to our staff. Currently, those negotiations were already set into place, and so we wanted to ensure at the end of the day that was defined by the JR that we were going to move forward with those pieces and be able to continue to right the ship.
I'm a little confused. So the teacher contract was just negotiated?
Yeah, so our 5 of our bargaining units here were on a 3-year cycle, but our teacher SENA cycle was 1 year. And
Oh,
so,
okay.
because of that, we want them to all be 3 years. I want them to all be long term, but they're only 1 year. To answer that question.
I have one last question. I know that Missouri requires a 3% fund balance, and we're at a healthy fund balance at this moment. Do you see any deep drop in the future? And by the future, I mean the next school year or possibly the school year after that?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You referred to the teacher unit. What was the percentage salary increase this year? Bargained. 3%, okay. And then do we pay 100% of staff benefits?
For the employee.
For the employee. 100%. Do we pay for family?
No.
They get no family benefits.
Right, Katina? No family. We don't pay for anything. It's just the employees.
Okay, okay. Sorry, I'm Carrie Bockert from Rockwood. And then my last question, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. When you were talking about the reduction as far as staffing, you said it would not include classrooms. Did I understand you?
The intent is to stay away, as far away from classrooms as we can. Yes. We
Okay.
do not want to impact classrooms.
Okay, so how is that gonna happen? Because we have pulled away those positions that weren't being filled. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it a little bit more. And we've talked about it, but do we have a strategy for how we're gonna determine?
Hi, good evening. Kelly Grigsby, Deputy Superintendent.
As you know, we have had staffing reductions and we have had reallocations and we have made reductions in student-facing positions. That's not a secret. We've been very transparent about that. We are doing everything we can to cut from non-wage cost containment, non-student facing staffing positions, but we have made some reductions through vacancies in our no RIFs, but we have made reductions through vacancies. We will continue to look at every position and the need for the position, so we make sure that we have quality services for students. Any other questions about staffing?
Not really. I just have a statement though. Garrett Meese with Hancock Place. First of all, I want to give a big round of applause to Dr. Macklin and his team, because you guys have done a lot to clean up the mess that was left to you. And, you know, having been through pretty serious budget issues in my own district when I first joined in 2010, we were the second lowest fund balance in the state at 4.4%. Wellston was at 4.39 when the state dissolved them. So I've been through this. I've been through this in a really hard way, and that's probably why I'm so adamant about the way I present myself, because I knew it was coming, and it wasn't for lack of trying to let you guys know what was going on. It was just the not understanding how serious it was, I guess. I mean, how I can give you that, I guess. But it wasn't for a lack of trying. I appreciate a lot what Dr. Macklin and you guys are doing, because it is a hard lift. And I'm actually very impressed because you're probably at least 2 to 3 years ahead of schedule at this point, and you're really, really pulling off a miracle. Because I've been through it within my own district, and I know what's going on behind the scenes because I've lived through it. And I've had, I've been, touching base with Dr. Macklin over the last couple of years. When I have not even being here, I know what he's doing. And I know what's going on, and I know how hard of a job it is, because I've helped do it myself in my own district. So hats off to you, because you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any additional questions? I would just echo Mr. Meese's comments that the work that's being done by the district and the superintendent and all of those in the room, and shifting, whether it's personnel or ordering supplies or reducing numbers where we can to avoid impact to students, is a tremendous job. And just to see the level of detail that you have presented to us on a consistent basis since we found ourselves in this situation has been tremendous and very much well respected. Thank you.
Next up is our Parent Advisory Council report. All right, we do not have a report. Next up, we are to our action items. First is the approval of the FY 25 budget adjustments.
So moved, McKelvey Melville.
Do we have a second?
Second, Hancock Place.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion carries. Next up, we have approval of the FY 26 budget. Do we have a motion to approve the FY 26 budget?
Sure.
So moved.
Second, Teresa.
Hancock
So
Place.
we have Hancock Place with the first, Normandy with the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion carries. Next up, we have volunteer and approval of the 3 members to represent the governing council on the 25-26 Public Review Committee. Are there any volunteers? So, sure. We have one request from Veronica Morrow Real from Riverview.
What is it?
So the Public Review Committee, having participated in the last 2, is really a deep dive into all the aspects of special school district. As stated before, we make recommendations at the end. It's a probably 4 to 6. Oh, Wendy, yes, help us.
Hello, Pendergrass, the Chief Compliance Officer. Basically what the PRC is, it's a group of individuals, 3 from the governing council, 3 from the PAC, and 3 that the DESE, the state, recommends to sit on this council. And what we do is meet once a month or whatever the PRC deems fit to do a deep dive, just like what Ms. Lee said, into finances, into structure, into strategies, into CSIP, into strategic plan, into the last PRC committee and recommendations. And we do presentations, we work together, and then that team by January or February starts driving any kind of opportunities for our district to improve on. And then we use that in our strategic plan and our CSIP plan as we move forward.
So it's a month. I mean, it's not just like a one-time thing. It's over a period of months. And it really does provide some additional insight into special school district. And like I said, I was a part of the last 2 PRCs, as was Sheila Powell Walker, Larry Felton before he retired from the Melville School District. Thank you. And it really is to have been a part of the governing council and to been a part of the public review committees and to see our recommendations coming into light is very welcoming. The conversations have continued to be had. Some of the equity conversations that we're now seeing, were not even to the level of discussion that they have, materialized now. And equity is a forefront in everything that we see now in special school district. So it really does provide an opportunity to, lend your voice to the students of special school district. Sure.
I was just gonna say too, that one of the things for anybody who's thinking about it, I feel like the way that it happened made it less overwhelming. Because you get to hear from each individual department. So each of the people who work here who have a department they're responsible for, they come before you and sort of give you an overview of the work they do. And then you have an opportunity to ask questions and make recommendations. So if that helps anybody who might be thinking about it, it's not like, here's all of special school district and figure it out. Over time, you get to learn a little bit about each department.
When does this committee normally meet?
Typically in the evening. I think once the members are selected, agree upon a night, agree upon a schedule. But I think that it is an opportunity, like I said, it's an opportunity to really understand special school district at a deeper level. And then to lend your voice to how it can continue to improve.
I don't remember if it was twice a month.
I
I know
was
it was
just
the
dependent
ones.
on the,
Yeah.
as close as it got to the end.
Yes.
And like data or how we could combine presentations, so it made sense that I saw finances and then HR and then finances, so it blended together, and this is a state statute, we don't do this just because we love meetings. This report, right, this report is actually shared with the state.
Absolutely.
Is there a lot of meeting prep before the meeting?
Or will there be documents to review?
Yes.
Betsy.
Betsy Rachel Hazelwood, I'd like to volunteer.
Teresa Pearson, Normandy. I like to volunteer also. So we have Normandy, we have Hazelwood, and we have Riverview Gardens. Are there, is there a motion to approve these three members to represent the governing council for
So
twenty?
moved.
Motion to
Renner
approve.
or Patton?
All right.
I second.
Second, Ridner. So we got the first with Pattonville, second with Ridner. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
I can look forward to hearing from you all.
Veronica, you like how I did? I asked a bunch of questions. Got a couple people interested, didn't I?
All right, next up is our reorganization of officers. Every year we reorganize, and so this is that time of year. So are there any nominations for governing council chair?
Debbie Hopper, Parkway, I'd like to nominate Keisha Lee.
Second.
Or any additional nominations? Okay, is there a motion to, oh, well, I guess we had a first and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, I will stay on as governing council chair. Thank you. Thank you for your trust. Next, is there a motion to nominate a governing council vice chair?
I would like to nominate Veronica Morrow Real for vice chair.
So Melville and Normandy. Anyone else? All those in favor of Veronica Morrow Real to be the governing council vice chair for the 25-26 school year, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, congratulations, Veronica. Next up, is there anyone who would like to, is there a motion to nominate someone for governing council secretary? Sorry, I'm tongue-tied.
Carrie Bacher, nominate Patrick McKelvey for
And I'll
secretary.
All right. Any other nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor of Patrick McKell? Oh, aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, congratulations.
So much change in this.
I
group.
know.
If it's not broken, I don't need to fix it.
So how
That's
many,
a sure vote of confidence down there from Hazelwood right now. Put that in the minutes.
I love
all right.
it. Next up on the agenda is our governing council meeting calendar. You have the dates before you. Our next meeting will be on September 22nd. That's a Zoom meeting. Then on December 1st, March 2nd, and June 1st of 2026. Any questions? Any announcements?
why do we do that September 1 on a Zoom?
We switched it. It's normally the orientation meeting.
Oh, is it not still an orientation meeting? Because I remember last year that thing was torturous on Zoom.
Yeah,
Opinion.
I mean,
My understanding is that there was gonna be a presentation on the September meeting with Dr. Macklin on the
orientation.
in-depth.
It's still the orientation. That is our,
Okay.
he said the orientation meeting in September. He said that he thought you would have a presentation. That is still the,
Yes, it is a thorough presentation that takes place here in September for orientation.
Here,
It's on Zoom.
it's on Zoom.
It's on Zoom.
So let me just recall the history. This is my retelling of history. We were all Zoom. Then the question was, well, what should we do? We had a larger discussion into the consensus. There was kind of two camps. We should be all Zoom or all in person. So we arrived at a compromise where we would do the orientation was in the majority decided that that would be a good one for Zoom, but that the rest of the meeting should be in person. And that was the first time we had switched back since COVID. And that was where we kind of landed because Fortunately, based on looking around the room, most of us have done that orientation multiple times at this point. It's good, but we thought if any meeting was going to be virtual, that should be the one to be virtual, but that the rest of the business should be conducted in person. That was the consensus of the time.
Correct. And we save money on dinner.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Put it in the budget.
That orientation presentation was 112 slides. It's now down to about 54. So
Thank
guys-
you. We greatly appreciate it.
Differentiate the learning. Ask it.
We'll have some in-house activities on that.
All right, there you go. Thank you.
Does anyone have any announcements? I have one. The MSBA Delegate Assembly is June the 16th in Branson. I will be running for president-elect of MSBA. So if you or your any representatives, or whoever your delegate is, we need you at the Delegate Assembly.
Would so come if I was.
We're gonna be there.
And it's Father's Day weekend, so I know it is, but. I'm sorry. Oh, and the PLC. Joanne, go ahead.
What is Father's Day weekend?
MSBA.
The MSBA Summer Summit.
Thank you.
Yes.
And the St. Louis Area Professional Learning Community, social is going to be on Friday,
Yes.
6 from 4 until 6 p.m. You should all receive invitations. Love to see you there. If you don't have information,
Chevy's.
you can talk to Chris Wynn.
Yes. Yes. Any additional announcements? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Toby Mello.
Who got the second?
I'll take the second.
I know you can't have them both. Teresa, okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye.